Hello, my name is LoG and welcome to my new series called LoG Tracks. In this series, I will make a backing track and then teach you what I would think about musically while I'm playing over it. All of these tracks will be split into categories, with this first category being called tempo, meaning if you want to play over this track, you better be prepared for the tempo to slowly increase over a long period of time. Let's check out this first track that's in B minor. This track will slowly increase tempo over the span of 10 minutes from 90 BPM to 160. The track will be at the end of this video and you can skip to it if you would like to not hear me talk about anything. You can find that link in the description. I will also upload a standalone video of just the track so you can add that to your playlist if that's something that you'd like to do. Let's get on to the lesson and talk about what I would do over a track like this.
All right, so this track is really just a B minor chord. I mean, there are a couple other little notes going on there in regards to the voicing, but they don't really have that much of an impact, so we don't really have to worry about it. If you want to just play whatever you would normally play over a minor sound, it will work perfectly over this track. Just keep in mind the feel of the track and keep in mind the fact that it is increasing tempo from 90 to 160. But what we are going to do in this lesson is actually go through every single note that exists in music and see how it sounds over this minor chord, or it kind of works over every single minor chord that you play. So what this is going to do is give you access to maybe some notes that you're not used to playing for whatever reason. You're not used to hearing them, or maybe you've tried them, but they've sounded a little dissonant, so you stay away from them. We're going to cover every single note and go over ways for you to use them to get some more interesting sounds in your playing without really thinking about too much, right? We're not really going to be talking about scales or anything. We're just going to be talking about these single notes. And what we're going to do is organize them from easiest to play, smoothest sounding notes over the track, to trickiest to play, the notes that sound the most dissonant or have the most clash over a plain B minor chord. Okay, so first, how do we do this? We need to start with the easiest notes to play, the smoothest, right? How do we know what notes are going to be the easiest to play? It's very simple. Whatever notes are happening in the chord behind us are going to be the safest or smoothest notes that we can play. So what notes are happening in a B minor chord? It's B's, 1, flat 3, and 5, which would be B, D, and F sharp. So how do I find those notes? It's very easy. If I play, how about B on one string, right? That's my 1. So where would flat 3 be? So a normal major scale would be this. 1, 2, normal 3. But we're playing minor, so it's flat 3. So I just bring it back 1 fret. So that's my 1, my flat 3. Now where's 5? If I walk up my normal major scale, it would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right there. So 5 is normal in minor. It doesn't change. The only note that's different from major to minor is the 3. It's flat in this case. So we have a 1, a flat 3, and a 5. Okay, so those notes are literally happening in a minor chord, the minor chord that's happening behind us. So if we also play them in our lead, they will sound perfect because we're gelling with the track perfectly. Let's confirm that by, I'm going to play the chord, B minor, just like this. This is the 1, flat 3, 5 in order, B, D, F sharp. Okay, I'm going to sing each of those notes over this chord and you'll notice that they will gel perfectly, as long as I sing well, which we'll see about that. So here's the chord. Here's the 1. Sounds okay, because I'm matching perfectly with that note. Here's the flat 3, right? Sounds Sounds fine, sort of, because I'm not singing that great, but that's okay. That's the flat 3. Sounds okay. Here's the 5. Gels perfectly with the chord, right? Because I'm just literally playing the same notes happening behind me. Great, so that's going to be our top level, the easiest, smoothest notes to play because they're just literally the notes that are already happening in the chord. So now we want to continue and find other notes that are also smooth, right? So how do we know when a note is smooth or when a note clashes? It's very, very simple. If I have a note that is a half step up or down from one of the notes in the chord, which is the 1 flat 3 5, like we just figured out, if it's a half step up or down from any of those notes, it will clash, right? Because the chord, for instance, let's say the chord is this. That's the 5, right? Let's say that note is happening in the chord, which it is because it's B minor. If you play a note that's a half step up or back from this, it will sound like this. So check this out. I'm going to play the chord. I'm going to sing that note over this chord so you can see the clash. So it clashes pretty heavily. Why is that? Because when something is playing a note, like the track is playing this note, and I choose to play the note back a fret, it creates what's called half-step dissonance. It's this clash between two notes that are fighting for your ear, and because they're so similar, it's hard for our ear to pick out either one from the other. So that sounds like this. That's always two notes, half step next to each other, played at the same time, right? We hear that as a clashing sound, a tense sound, a dissonant sound, not necessarily a bad sound. It's just a sound that has its own thing, right? But that's not what we're looking for right now. We want the notes that do not do that don't have half steps at all. Where are those notes? Let's just walk through literally every single note that exists in music from B to B, and we're going to find the ones that do not have the half step clash, okay? Let's start. So here's our 1, right? How about this note? Immediately I can tell it's right next to 1, so it's not going to work. Let's keep going. How about this note? This note is not next to 1, right? It's whole step away instead of half step, but it is a half step from the 3, the flat 3, right? So that's another note that isn't going to be super, super smooth. Let's keep going. That's the flat 3. We're already playing that. It's fine. How about this note? Right next to the flat 3 that I just played, so it's going to have that clash. Let's keep going. Flat 3, that's the note I just played. How about this one? Right, so this note is not right next to the 3, whole step, and it's definitely not next to the 1, which was way back here. What about the 5? Is it next to the 5? This is flat 3, this was 5. That note is not right next to 5, just like it's not next to 3. It's kind of midway in between the two. What note is this? This would be if I just checked it out with my major scale off of B. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's 4, but because we're playing minor, we have a flat 3, which means the 4 does not clash. So maybe this note will work. I'm going to play B minor and sing the 4. I think it sounds pretty cool, right? It's not clashing like one of those other notes that I played earlier because it's not directly next to any of the notes in the chord. Pretty cool sound in my opinion. So I'm going to put that into my playing. A 1, flat 3, 4, 5. Right, sounds pretty good. Let's keep going. We just played 4. Let's keep moving up. That was 4, the note we just decided to add. What's after that? Is this note next to anything? It is. That's the 5. This note is right behind it. So we'll skip that one for now. There's the 5, right? We're already playing that. Let's keep going. That note is right next to 5, so we're going to skip that one for now. About this one. This note is not right next to 5. Okay? It's pretty far away from the flat 3, right? Excuse me. There's the note. Where's the 1? The 1 up here. It would be here, right? That's the note we're talking about. And here's the 1. Not next to each other either. So maybe this note will function like another note that will be smooth. Let's test it out with the chord. Here's the chord. I'm going to sing that note. Interesting. It's not super smooth, but I mean, it doesn't make sense. Shouldn't it be smooth? It's not right next to anything. The reason why this note sounds a little odd is because of the distance or the particular interval that's created between it. This is natural 6, by the way, if you're wondering what the note is. Natural 6 of the key. Between that note and the flat 3 of the key. Listen to the two when I play them. Natural 6, flat 3. Hear that sound? I'm going to play a bunch of these in a row. Right? what is this sound? This is called a tritone. A tritone is a particular interval that exists in music that always has this kind of odd, strange, or quirky sound, right? It's not half-step dissonance because the notes are definitely not next to each other, but it has that kind of odd flavor, right? If I played a bunch of them. So our ears hear that as a dissonant note, even though they're not right next to each other, right? And we don't really have to get into why it sounds dissonant. We'll save that for another time. So maybe this 6 is not the best note to put into my sound if I want to find the smoothest notes possible. So let's just remember it and let's keep going. So this is where we were. Where was the 5? The 1, flat 3, the 5. That's the 6 that we just played, natural 6 of the key. Let's keep going. How about this note? Okay, so this note, is it next to 5? No, 5 was there. It's pretty far away from the flat 3, which was right here, right? And where's the 1? The 1 up the octave would be here. Not next to that one either. Maybe this one will work. What note is this? This would be the flat 7 of the key, because if this is 1, normal 7 is always back 1 fret, flat 7 is back 1 more. Let's see what this sounds like when I sing it over the chord. That's B minor, right? Here's the note. I think it sounds pretty smooth. That's me playing it in the chord. I think it sounds pretty smooth. I think this is the sound that maybe we're shooting for, right? Another smooth note to add to the mix. We got one more to test out, right? Here I was, there was the 1. That's the flat 7 that I just found. We got one more note to play. Can already tell you that's going to be slightly dissonant because it's right back 1 fret from the 1. So we'll keep that one in mind for later. But now we have a set of notes that are pretty smooth sounding, right? We just went through every single note and found the group of notes that are the smoothest. And we happen to come up with 5 notes. The 1, chord tone. The flat 3, chord tone. The 4, not a chord tone, but it's not clashing with anything directly. The 5, chord tone. Flat 7, not a chord tone, but it's not clashing with anything directly. And then we have another 1 up top. Okay, let me play this sound on 1 string. Okay, if that sounds familiar to you, it should, because this is called minor pentatonic, okay? Let me now play this in 1 position so you can see the notes a little bit better. So instead of 1, flat 3, 4, 5, I'm going to play 1, flat 3, 4, 5, flat 7, right? Distance between 5 and flat 7 is always 3 frets, and then 1 up top. How many times have you heard that sound? I would say every day of your life, because it's insanely common. The reason why it is so common, the reason why so many people gravitate towards this sound is because it is impossible for you to play a note that clashes with a minor chord because of the reasons that I just went through. 3 of the 5 notes are literally in the chord, and then the other 2, the 4 and the flat 7, do not have that natural clash. That's why these notes always sound pretty good, right? So I'm going to play the track, and we're going to see what these notes sound like over the track, see if everything's smooth. So there's the track, 1, 3, 5 only. So, of course it sounds good. It's the notes in the chord. Let's now play the 4 and the 7, flat 7. That's the 4. Flat 7. All of those sounds I'm sure sound familiar to you because it's just literally minor pentatonic, right? Why is it called pentatonic? Because it's a 5-note scale, pentatonic, 5 tones, right? That's why we play the scale. That's why we love it so much. That's the minor pentatonic, right? So what we're going to do now is we're going to take this sound that we just created from playing every note that exists in music, finding all the smoothest notes, right? These are the top 2 levels of smooth. Top level is the chord tones. Next is the notes that do not clash, right? Now we're going to use this scale, minor pentatonic, as our bass template. We're always going to be coming back to these notes because they are the smoothest notes to play, but we're gradually now going to add in every other note that exists, regardless of whether it's in the key or anything. Literally every note that exists, we're going to add into the sound and see what it does to our sound when we're playing over this track. So the next set of notes that we're going to add in are going to be the 2s, so the 2 and flat 2, and the 6s, the 6 and flat 6. That will be the next level of the slightly more tricky notes. Okay, so like I mentioned, this set of notes is going to be the 2, the flat 2, the flat 6, and the normal 6, the 2s and the 6s. So if you're wondering why it's this group of notes, it's because they're not top level, because they're slightly more dissonant, right, in one way or another. But they're also not bottom level, because all of these notes naturally exist somewhere in a minor chord in a key, right? You're always going to have some minor chord in a key that will contain a normal 6, a flat 6, a 2, or a flat 2. Now, it might not be the same minor chord. Like this minor chord over here might have a flat 6, whereas this one will have a normal 6. But regardless, they do exist somewhere in a key, as opposed to the bottom level notes that we're going to talk about in a bit, that do not exist anywhere naturally in a key. So we'll get to those. But first, let's start with kind of the simplest of this group, and that's the normal 2. So let's find the normal 2. If this is 1, normal 2 is always up a whole step. You can always look for it, or you can also look for it back a half step from the flat 3. So if you know where 1 is, like if that's 1, go up a whole step. If that's 1, go up a whole step. If that's 1, go up a whole step. 1, 2. If you know where 3 is, go back a half step, excuse me. Right, all of these are 3s, back a fret to the 2. So let's see what this sounds like. Let me play normal pentatonic. Now pentatonic with the 2. There it is. There we go. There's the lick. So that's me playing the normal 2, flat 3, flat 7 at the same time. Hear that dissonance that it creates? Very common sound because it gives it that nice darkness from the note, but it's not super crazy sounding. So let me confirm that by playing the chord and singing the 2. So, right? It's dissonant, but it kind of sounds cool, mostly because of how common this note is and how naturally existing the note is in a key. Let's play this over the track, see what it sounds like. Normal pentatonic. With the 2, there it is. There it is down there. Maybe, that's me just sitting on it right there. Right? So notice it gels pretty well with this sound. Now, I do have to admit, I'm kind of cheating a little bit because the 2 sometimes happens in the chord in the track, so it's going to sound a little smoother than it normally would if you were just playing B minor. So do keep that in mind. It's going to sound a little better over this track than usual, but you can still make it work as long as you know what to do, right? If the chord has a 2 in it, which sometimes this one does, that allows me to sit on the note more without it sounding heavily clashing. If the chord never plays a 2 and it's only B minor, that note will now clash a little bit more. You just have to keep that in mind. Okay. The next note that we can play is the normal natural 6. So if you remember, that one earlier was the note that was not a half step next to anything, but it was a tritone away from the flat 3. That's the flat 3. That's the natural 6. It's always up a whole step from 5. 5, natural 6, right? Now, it's not a bad note at all. It's awesome, but it does create that little tritone sound. So let's see what it sounds like. Or first, let me play the chord and sing the notes. You can hear how it interacts. Here's the chord. So, pretty cool. It has like a very mysterious sound, I guess. It's used a lot in a whole variety of styles, but it's heavily used in like funk or something like that. If you're stuff like that, but let's see what it sounds like over this track. Normal minor. Here comes the 6. Right, just sneaking it into my scale. There it is down there. Notice how I found that 6 right here. Up here, I know it's a whole step up from 5, 5, 6, but it's also back a half step from the flat 7. Flat 7, 6. I know that down here, that's a flat 7, so I can go back a fret, find it there. Again, here we go. Down there, right? Pretty cool sound, right? Play that better. So this this definitely creates a different flavor that, again, might be appropriate sometimes and it might not be appropriate in other times. So just be aware of where the note is and what it sounds like, and you can really make it work. Let's move on now to the flat 6. Okay, flat 6, very simple. We just played normal 6. Flat 6 is just back a fret, right? So this one is going to directly clash with the 5, right? So anywhere you play a 5, just move up 1 fret. That's going to be your normal flat 6, okay, or your flat 6. When we play the chord, sing the note, see what it sounds like. Clashes pretty heavily, but it can sound really cool in the right circumstances, right? If you do like... It's a very kind of dark, somber note, I guess you can call it. So let's hear what it sounds like first minor. Now with the flat 6, right? Every time I do that, that's the flat 6. Pretty cool sound. It gives this darkness to it. But notice also what I'm not doing. I'm not sitting on that note that much because I know it will bring out a dissonance that I might not want. Maybe I do want it, right? But let's say right now I don't. So I'm not going to just go like this. Right? That's me just nailing it. That's going to be way too strong of a clash. But I am just going to touch on it a little bit. Right? So notice what I'm doing. I'm touching on it just for a second and then resolving back down a fret to the 5 because I know the 5 is a super safe note. So I'm like getting into slightly dissonant territory by playing the flat 6 and then pulling it back to resolve to the 5. You can make that note work like that. You can make any of these notes work like that as long as you target the safe notes and just sneak in those other ones. There it is down here, right? Really cool sound. So that's the flat 6, right? We got one more. This one is probably going to be the most tense. Maybe it's debatable. It's up to you to figure out. This is the flat 2. So where's the flat 2? Very simple. If you know where 1 is, move up a fret. That's flat 2, right? 1, flat 2, 1, flat 2. So you can already tell that this note is going to be pretty tense because it's directly clashing with the 1 right there, okay? So when we play the chord, I'll sing the note. Right? It's pretty strong, but that's okay. We're not going to sit on it like this over the track, because if we do, it sounds like that, which is a little strong. We're not going to do that. We're going to sneak it into our existing playing. So if I play pentatonic, let me sneak in the note to that passage. So notice, play that better, I'm just touching on it, much like the flat 6, just touching on it and then coming back to my normal safe notes. Right there it was in the low octave. Let's try it over the track. Normal minor. How about the normal 2? Flat 2, right? How about this? Notice that whole time I'm playing that note, I'm playing figures that contain that note, but what am I always doing? Resolving to the 1 in this case. I don't have to resolve to the 1, but the 1 feels really good to hit because I'm playing the note right ahead of it. So it's like you hear this dissonance, but it's much more satisfying when you resolve back down to the 1 because you're hearing this note and your ears naturally want to hear this one. So if I make that happening in my playing, if I make it happen, it makes it work really nice. Right? So you can really get some cool sounds out of that. So that's that kind of middle level of our note grouping, right? We played the normal 2, the normal 6, flat 6, and the flat 2. And as we move down that list, the more and more dissonant the notes became, right? The 2 is pretty tame as far as dissonance, so I can just kind of put it into the chord, remember? That was the note. Sounds okay. Natural 6 right there was, but then flat 6, right, starts to get more dissonant as we move further down. We're getting to these close notes, and then the flat 2, right? Now, the reason why, in my opinion, the flat 6 and the flat 2 sound the most dissonant, it has to do with how they are connected to the chord tones, right? If you notice, the 2, normal 2, was back a fret from the flat 3. There's a flat 3, there's the 2, back a fret. But notice the other 2, the flat 6 and the flat 2, the other half-step dissonant notes, were up a fret from their corresponding chord tones. If this was 5, the flat 6 was here above 1 fret. There's the 1. Flat 2 was above or ahead of it by 1 fret. There's something about hearing notes, dissonant notes, when they're ahead of a chord tone. The dissonance is a little stronger than if they are behind a chord tone, right? That's I don't know if that's true. That's my hypothesis. That's what I've noticed, at least. And the 2 is behind the 3, so it's a little bit more palatable, easily to play, more easy to play than it is like the flat 2, right? Right, that's the flat 2. It immediately sounds pretty strong. So keep all that stuff in mind. Experiment with these notes. You can get some really awesome sounds. Again, be aware of their uses and be aware of when they're appropriate. Touch on it just a little bit, or if you really like the sound, feature it a little bit more. And of course, you can mix and match, right? How about I play like the 6 and the 2? So let's try that. Pretty cool sounds. How about the flat 2 and the flat 6, right? Let's try that. So I might have snuck in a different note in there at some point, but that's okay. That you hear the sounds that we create when we mix and match. So you can really get some cool stuff out of this. So keep that stuff in mind. We got one more level of notes to play, and that's going to be the final, the trickiest notes to play, the notes that are going to have the most dissonance of all of these. Okay, so these final notes that we're about to play are going to be the trickiest and most dissonant notes that we have available. They're also the only 3 notes that we have not talked about in all of the notes in music. The reason why these 3 notes are going to be the most dissonant is they are, of course, half steps next to chord tones, like some of the other ones that we've talked about. But the difference with these notes is that they do not exist anywhere in a key in a minor context. There is no minor chord that exists in any key that has a natural 7 in it. There is no minor chord that exists in a key that has a normal 3. There is no minor chord in existence that has naturally built into it a flat 5, right? Those are the 3 notes that we'll be talking about: the flat 5, the normal 7, and the normal 3. Now, you might say, well, I've definitely heard those notes before in music, and you're probably correct. Those notes are used a lot, but naturally occurring in a plain key, those notes never happen with a minor chord. You might hear a song that's got some different progression that makes those notes available. That's definitely possible. Or you might have a voicing that makes those notes available. But like I said, naturally occurring in a key, they never exist. So let's get to them. The first one that we're going to play is probably the most popular. This is going to be the flat 5, right? You are probably already playing flat 5 because it's a really common note in blues and rock and whatnot. So let's go over where that note is. It's pretty much where it sounds like. It's flat 5, right? Back 1 fret from where normal 5 is. So where's normal 5? Here's our 1, flat 3, 5. Simply back a fret from that 5 right there. Excuse me. That's the note. It's also up 1 fret from 4 if you rather look at it from that perspective. So 1, flat 3, 4, flat 5. So we have 2 locations in this little area, right? We've got 1, flat 3, 4, flat 5, or 1, flat 3, 4, flat 5, right? Same note. So let's see what this note sounds like just over a minor chord. I'm going to play the chord and then sing the flat 5. So, right? Pretty strong, again, because it's a half step back from the 5, and again, this note does not exist over a minor chord in any key. So let's see what we can do with this sound. So here's my normal pentatonic. Right, pretty normal. Now, with the flat 5, how most people play it, they use it as a passing tone from 4 to 5. So you'll hear someone play a 4, and then a flat 5, and then a 5. That's probably the most common way. So 4, flat 5, 5, right? This is almost like a little chromatic thing, right? So that's the most common approach with that. So let's listen to the track, see what it sounds like. Normal minor. flat 5. Was bending up to it from the 4. There's the 4. That's the flat 5. That's the normal 5, right? So I was using it mostly in passing there, but let's check out now how I can maybe feature the note by jumping to it and not just using it as a little passing tone. So I'm actually going to get rid of the 4 and the 5, the notes on either side of the flat 5, so we really only hear it kind of hanging out by itself. So 1, flat 3, bam, flat 5 right there. And then the flat 7, right? And we'll continue like that. So how about 1, flat 3, flat 5 to 1? Right? Maybe sneak in some of the other notes. How about we'll put in the 4, but no 5. So 1, flat 3, 4, flat 5, no 5, and jump right to the others. Pretty cool. So how about like pretty cool. So now maybe I can do it without the 4, but with the 5. So that would be like this: flat 7, 1, flat 3, flat 5, 5. Pretty cool. It works really well to slide into the 5, right? That's more of like a passing tone. But again, if I go 5 down to the flat 5, that's featuring that note a little bit more. Right? That's that note right there. How about up top? So that would be 1, flat 3, 4, flat 5, 5. Right? I'm sure you've heard those kind of sounds before. Super, super common, right? That's the flat 5. So if you enjoy that sound, if you want to sound a little bluesy, maybe a little like classic rock, that's a great note to play. Again, though, it's pretty strong. So if I sit on it, you know, it's pretty clashing, but if you use it in the way that I was just doing, you get some really cool sounds. So, okay, that's the flat 5. The next note we're going to play is the normal 7, okay? So, of course, the pentatonic sound that we've been playing this whole time has flat 7. So, flat 7, 1, flat 3, 4, 5, flat 7, 1, right? We're going to play the normal 7, which is up a fret from the flat 7, or back a fret from the 1, if we want to think about it like that. So, here's the normal pentatonic just with that note put in there. So, there it is, flat 7, 7, 1. That kind of has the flavor of a flat 5, right? If you remember the flat 5 sound, that's me using it in passing. This is the normal 7 being used in passing. Right? It kind of has the same flavor. So I'm going to do the same thing with this. That's in passing right there, but now I'm going to feature that note by taking out either of the note on either side. So maybe I'll take out the flat 7 first. So that instead of going flat 7, 1, I'm going to play normal 7, 1. Right? Really, really cool sounds, right? Oh, I forgot to sing and play this note. Let me try that. So here's the normal minor chord. Let's see what it sounds like just by itself over this chord. Right? Pretty tense, the chord. That's what it would be. Pretty tense, but in my opinion, pretty awesome too. It has this really, really distinct flavor. Now, this sound is not super common, but it is pretty common if you are listening to the right genres. Like if you listen to music that is very harmonic, intense, like a lot of chords happening and more dense voicings, like certain styles of jazz or classical music, or really anything. I mean, prog rock, you'll hear it. All styles, you'll hear it. But it's a very common note for certain styles of harmony. Certain chord progressions will have that note. It'll bring out that note a little bit. See what it sounds like over the track. Minor. There's the 7. There it is. little better. So that's the 7. Every time I tilted my head, I think that was the natural 7 that I was playing right there. Really, really cool sound. So now in the midst of all of that, I was doing some different things. Sometimes I was just playing the 7 by itself. So that would be like this, getting rid of either note on either side or both notes on either side, getting rid of the flat 7 and the 1 and only playing the natural 7. So that would be natural 7 right up to flat 3, 4, 5, natural 7. And then maybe eventually playing the 1 at the end. I can also just get rid of the 1 and play the flat 7 and the 7. So that'll be like this. Flat 7, 7, right up to flat 3. Pretty cool sound. I put the 1 on top there, so that's the 3 on top. 3. Pretty cool sound, especially when you play it a bunch, then eventually resolve on a nice root somewhere. It works out really well. That's the natural 7, okay? Last note. This note, I mean, it's up to you to decide which one you think is most tricky or most dissonant. This is the one that I think is the most dissonant for 3 reasons. This note that we're talking about is the normal 3, okay? So we've been playing flat 3 this whole time. That's flat 3. Normal 3 is up 1 fret from it. So if I do like, okay? The reason why this note is going to be extra tense over this track, like I said, for 3 reasons. Reason number 1, it's ahead of a chord tone, right? It's 1 half step up from a chord tone, okay? So it's half step dissonance. Number 2, it never exists in a key, like we just talked about. There is no minor sound that naturally exists in a key that has a normal 3 or a major 3. Doesn't exist. But then reason number 3, probably the most obvious or the strongest reason, is the normal 3 is what makes a chord major, right? So when we are playing this note, the normal 3, we are implying a major sound, which means we're playing major on top of minor, which is, you know, those are 2 very different sounds and we're just playing them at the same time when we do this. The opposite, playing minor over major, is actually not that rare, or not that rare. It's used quite a bit, but when you flip it, right, major over minor, it's definitely a little stronger sounding. So in this context, let me play the chord, and I'm going to sing that note. I'm going to sing that note, see what it sounds like. Ba! You know, it's pretty strong, but again, that's not how we're going to do it. We're not just going to go wham and hit it like that. Right, that's a little bit too strong, but we are going to play it. We're going to sneak it in. How I'm going to sneak it in, though, is I'm going to play that note alongside the normal flat 3. Because if I only play the normal 3, that sounds like I'm playing major. It sounds like I'm playing like dominant 7th or something right there. So I still want to have the minor flavor, and the minor flavor comes from the flat 3. I have to have that note. So every time I play this normal 3, I'm going to sneak in the flat 3 at the same time, so it still retains that minor flavor. So maybe I'll do something like this, like, right? See what that sounds like over the track. Normal minor, flat 5 right there. Sorry. Here we go. How about? Better. So you notice as I'm playing these notes, I'm kind of doing like a little bit of a, that's me just sneaking in the normal 3 on top. So 1, flat 3, normal 3 right there. Right? Some really cool sounds. That one's the most difficult, again, to sneak in. You have to really retain the minor sound to make sure that that note doesn't just blanket, like make it sound like you're playing major. So. There we go. Had to get that lick right once at least. So that is every single note that exists, we just went over, right? The first part of this video was the simplest notes, which is 1, flat 3, 5, then the 4 and the flat 7. That makes up minor pentatonic. Then we talked about the notes that are dissonant, but they naturally exist somewhere in a minor context, the 2s and the 6s. So natural 2, flat 2, natural 6, flat 6. Now we're talking about the notes that are still dissonant but also do not exist anywhere in a minor context naturally. That would be the normal 7, flat 5, and the normal 3, right? That's every single note that we just played. So I want you to think about this. I want you to kind of approach it like, this is going to be a weird analogy, but I think it works pretty well. So imagine you're cooking a meal, right? Here's your meal, and you want to add some hot sauce to your meal, okay? You've got a whole bunch of different hot sauces. You've got some over here that are very mild, and then you have some over here that are like super, super spicy. So the ones over here, the mild hot sauces, you can use probably quite a bit of it because they're mild. They're not going to impact the flavor of your meal that much. The mild hot sauces are like our smooth, safe notes. Pentatonic, maybe a little bit of 2, because those notes are very low impact. They don't affect the general sound. In fact, they work perfectly. They gel perfectly with the sound that we're playing over. But as we move to the other side, and now we're dealing with these like ultra hot sauces, they're going to impact the flavor of the meal way more because of how strong they are. This hot sauce would be like the super dissonant notes, like the normal 3, the flat 5, the normal 7, right? Because of the strength of those notes, they're going to impact the sound way more. So what do? If you still like the sounds or like the flavor of that super hot sauce, what are you gonna do? You're just gonna put a tiny little drizzle, just a couple little drops on top of your meal. And then when you eat the meal, it still tastes like how you want, but it's got that nice little extra spice of that super hot sauce, right? What are you not gonna do? You're not gonna say, I'm gonna take this super hot sauce, unscrew the lid and dump the entire jar all over whatever I'm eating, right? Why would you not want to do that? Because of the strength and the impact of this super hot sauce, you're going to ruin your meal because the flavor of that hot sauce will dominate the meal and you won't even be able to figure out what you're eating because it's going to be so hot. That's like these notes. If I am playing minor, right, and I just blast this normal 3 in your face, it's so strong, it's going to dominate the sound and kind of maybe ruin it a little bit, right? But I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to kind of hit it very, very lightly. Same thing maybe with this natural 7. If I go like, right, I'm just sneaking it in there amidst the other safer sounds, okay? But of course, what also is in existence is some people like their food hotter than other people. Some people like a lot of this hot sauce. So what does that mean? Some people are going to play these out notes, these more tense notes, a lot more than others, right? When other people like very mild hot sauce. They're both okay. It's both, either option. You either like these more dissonant notes or you don't like them. Either is fine. It doesn't matter. Just because you are like sticking 100% to pentatonic, maybe with a little 2, does not mean you are worse than someone who likes these more fancy like dissonant notes. It doesn't matter. But what we want to do is make sure that no matter where you are, no matter what your preferences are, you always know where these notes are. You want these notes to be available because down the road, you might be in a situation, maybe playing over a certain chord progression or playing over a certain style of music where these fancy dissonant notes might be the notes that you have to play to make it work. So you need access to them so you'll be able to fit in nice and easily. Or maybe a couple years from now, you just naturally, your ear might start to enjoy those more dissonant notes. Again, you want access to them so you can play them if you come across either of those situations, right? So really important that you understand what they do to the sound and you're not afraid of them, right? You don't look at them as wrong notes. Just look at them as notes that could potentially be very, very dissonant. And dissonance is not a bad thing. It's just a specific sound. Just like ultra hot sauce is not bad. It's just ultra hot, right? You have to know how to use it properly to make sure that you don't dominate the sound or the meal that you're cooking. So to wrap up this video, I'm going to play all of these sounds in a row and I'm going to call off which ones I'm doing. So we're going to start with just 1, 3, 5. That's it. Add in the 4, the flat 7. 4 right there. Flat 7. Nice. Next note will be the 2. There it is. That's me bending up to the 2. Nice. Natural 6. also going to play the 2 as well. Okay, I play a little bit more there, but that's okay. How about flat 6, the next note? Okay, what's the next note? We did flat 6. Flat 2 will be the next, and that finishes up that category. So okay, now we're into the bottom category of the notes that are extra dissonant, right? Let's start with the flat 5. Okay, then we have the natural 7, 1 fret back from the 1. I'm actually playing the natural 6 and the natural 7 right there. Pretty cool. Oh wait, I forgot one. I need to do the natural 3. Let's do that. So okay. How about flat 2, natural 3? I'm also playing flat 5. So you'll notice I'm just like throwing in whatever note I want because I know where it is and I know how to access that note, right? That's all it is. So to wrap up this whole concept or what we're really doing with this lesson, I want to go over a really, really important thing. So we just went through every single note and learned how to use all of the notes over minor, right? That's what we did. Now you might be saying to yourself, I don't need to do that because I already know all these scales that give me those sounds, right? And that's great. There's nothing wrong with knowing scales that give you the sounds. But the problem is, most people, when they learn scales, what they do is they focus on the scale shape and what it feels like and looks like on the guitar. So let's say I'm playing this scale. This is minor with a 2 and a natural 6, right? So that looks like this. One way of the thousands of ways to play it, okay? So let's say you learn that scale, right? And you can say, oh, this scale gives me this certain sound. Great. But what most people do is they'll practice like this. Okay, make sure I got the fingering. Cool, fingering's good. I'm playing all the right notes. Like there's no wrong notes. Let me see how fast I can get. Maybe get some little patterns or something like that. All of that stuff is really good. But notice what I'm not thinking about. I'm not thinking about what are the notes I'm playing, right? How do those notes function over the chord? Where are those notes located in the position that I'm currently playing in, right? If you learn a scale and you are practicing that scale and you cannot tell me, or you cannot tell yourself what the notes are and where they're located and what they do to the sound, guess what? You do not have control over what you're doing. The scale is playing the music for you, right? You are not doing anything. You're just at the whim of the scale, okay? So learning scales, playing scales is not a bad thing, but you have to take that extra step and know where the notes are in that shape, and you have to know what they will do to the sound, right? You have to be able to pick a position like this. I'm in B minor right here, right? What we've been doing this whole time. You need to be able to pick any fret on any string in this area and know exactly what the note is and know how it's going to function over the sound, right? So if this is 1, I should be able to say 4, flat 7, 6, right? Natural 6, flat 3, 2, normal 7, 5, flat 5, 1, 2, flat 3, 1, flat 3, flat 5, 4, normal 7, flat 2, 1. So notice how I'm calling off all of those notes. I know what they are, I know how they're going to function over the sound, and I know how to use them, right? So if you can do that, the reality is you don't really need to learn any scale whatsoever because all of the notes are right there, right? You're doing it yourself. You have control over the notes and what they're going to sound like, right? You don't have to learn a scale and let the scale play the music for you, right? You can pick the notes and change them at will, right? I can play a sound with natural 7 and natural 6. then jump right into like flat 5 blues without having to think about, oh, what scale do I play now? What scale do I do here? I don't have to do any of that because I know where the notes are and I can pick and choose them at will. Super important. So again, it's okay if you want to play scales or think about scales, that's fine, but you have to take that extra step to know what the notes are, where they're located, and what they're going to do to the sound. Super important, so make sure that you do that. So that should pretty much wrap it up for this lesson. Sorry, it was a little long, but I think it's all pretty important material. If you guys enjoyed this type of instructional stuff, feel free to check out my Patreon at the link below, and I hope you enjoy this track. Again, it works up from 90 BPM to 160, so hopefully you enjoy it, and I will see you guys in the next one. Take it easy.